A lovely morning. Welcome all. Bhagwan only wrote a few things of his own. Mostly he wrote when people asked him to write something, he responded to people's requests, devotees' requests, because he had no ego, there was no volition, there was no desire to do anything. And yet he wrote a few things. And most of the things that he wrote of his own were only in praise of Arunachala, the mountain he worshipped, the mountain which is nothing but Shiva himself in the form of a mountain. And I thought we'll start our prayers today with that. It's called the Arunachal Pancharatnam. Karuna Purna Sudhabde Kabalita Ghana Vishwarupa Kiranavalya Arunachal Paramatman Aruno Bhavachitta Kanja Suvikasaya Tvaya Arunachal Sarvam Bhutva Sthitva Pralina Vetachitram Rityaha Mityatmataya Rityasi Bhoste Vadanti Hridayam Nama Ahamiti Kutta Ayati Tanvishyanta Pravishtaya Tamaladhiya Avagamya Swam Rupam Shamyatyaruna Chalatvahi Nadivabdo Tvaktya Vishayam Bhahyam Ruddha Pranena Ruddha Manasam Sattvam Dhyayan Pashyati Yogi Diditi Maruna Chalatvahi Mahi Ante Tvaya Arpita Manasatstvam Pashyan Sarvam Tava Pritataya Satatam Bhajate Ananya Pritya Sajayatyaruna Chalatvahi Sukhe Magna Srimad Ramana Maharshi Darshanam Arunachalasya Devagira Panchakamarya Gito Ratnam Chidam Upanishadam. Exalting the presence of Arunachal by Ramana Maharshi himself. Part of the morning Ved Paraṁ every day that some of you may have listened to in the past. The penultimate verse, number 29, bandha-muktyatītaṁ paraṁ sukham, vindatiha vastu-daivikaḥ. One that is beyond bondage and or liberation. If I'm bound, I think I have to be liberated. And that's where we all are. We think we are bound. We are bound to this limited life as the most exalted, the best experience, the best thing that could happen to me is this life. That's how we live. That's how we live the life. And we should leave that living and go towards liberation, that this life is the obstacle. This body is the obstacle. This mind in its current state is the obstacle. If I'm not obstructed by my ignorance, what is that ignorance? The ultimate ignorance is that I'm not the reality. I am part of the same consciousness that I'm seeking. So if that bondage, that ignorance is removed, I'm liberated. There could be nothing more simple to absorb, number one, and then to practice, number two, and finally to merge with it. And the first two steps, only for the mortals like us. If we were not limited, we wouldn't have been having this discussion. We would be realized. We would not need the use of language to talk to each other. We would be beyond expression just as beyond bondage and beyond liberation. He says, my state of consciousness, the consciousness is talking to us. Consciousness is saying, bandha-mukti-atītaṁ. Atit means one which, not one, sorry, that which has no boundary. That which has no definition, no perimeter to define it with. Atītaṁ, bandha. And bondage, he says, I am neither bondage nor liberation that you think I am. Tam paraṁ sukham. When I understand that I do not have any bondage, and therefore there is no liberation, I am in the state of paraṁ sukham, ultimate happiness, not pleasure. When we think of an object to come to happiness, it's pleasure. It's not happiness. That's why it's short-lived. Even if I'm seeking a lot of money in my investment fund, it's only a pleasurable thing that can be measured by the success of my investment. Just to take a crude example of a mundane matter, that is pleasure. Happiness is that which is beyond any definition of any objects. So, bandha-mukti-atītaṁ paraṁ sukham. So when I'm beyond the bondage and liberation, I am in the state of ultimate happiness. Sukham, sukha and dukkha. All of us are familiar with the word sukha and dukkha. And sukham and dukkha is only dependent on something. But the param sukha is that which becomes happiness. When it merges with that happiness, which does not have any object connected to it, to limit me with that objective happiness, which becomes pleasure, then I'm happy. Then whether I have money or not, I'm happy. Whether I have the friends that I used to have or not, I'm happy. Whether I have the accolades I used to get for my whatever bravado I used to have in my life, and people used to clap and say, great job, great things. And all that used to stick to my ego like the resin to a tree. All that was not necessary. And even when I'm condemned, I'm equally happy. Even when people mock at me and say, look at that guy who used to be such and such, now look at him. That's a very good state to be at. So, bandha-mukti-atītaṁ paraṁ sukham. If I'm beyond the feeling of bondage, I'm liberated. And that liberation also is not desirable, it is beyond it. Vindatiha, vastu-daivikaḥ. Vindatiha. And he says, Bhagavan is saying here, vindatiha, right here. Here and now. Vindatiha. Attain, you can attain it here. Who can attain it? Obviously, everything is very subtle. So many people have said, and many people in many other satsangs that I've attended or have been invited to, I've heard people saying, oh, many of Bhagavan's devotees attained it here and now, and we can also attain it here and now. Yes, we can. Nobody's denying the fact. So, vastu-daivikaḥ, he says, vindatiha, here and now. Who can attain it? He's not saying anybody can attain it. Yes, anybody can attain it theoretically. We all know that. We all are Brahman theoretically. You and I are Brahman. He says, vastu-daivikaḥ, this can be attained here and now, right now, by the one whose qualities are divine. Daivikaḥ, that jiva, daivikaḥ, that jiva. That limited entity like bandhu, everybody, we are all limited beings. And yet we are Brahman. We all understand theoretically. Bhagavan is saying the one who has got divine qualities can attain it here and now. What are those divine qualities? Think about it. Think about it. Let my meditation be focused on my divine qualities. Not on things that I need to do or things that I have already attained or how I had such a sublime meditative moment, which people also describe many, many times. I'm sure you've been to workshops. People talk about, I was levitating, and everybody says, your great experience. All that is egotistical talk. But in my personal meditation, if I can think of my own divine qualities, which will be selflessness, which will be able to, I mean, I'm sure all of you have many, many divine qualities that you can relate to. I don't need to paraphrase them. So this is the gist of it. I am beyond bondage. I am beyond liberation. That I am. And I can attain it here and now if I have the divine qualities. It is all in my mind, whether I am really what I want to be, whether I really want to be liberated, then I need to withdraw from the world. And given all the challenges, no denying the fact, given all the challenges, it's an arduous task, but I can do it. If I'm convinced that I can't do it, I will do it, I will attain it, and I will get those experiences which will reveal to me that I am walking towards that goal. So the point Bandhu is trying to make is we are the victims of our own minds, and our mind needs to be separated from us. And that's the purpose of our meditation also, isn't it? Any questions on this verse?
Paraṁ, Bandhu.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure, Venkat, go ahead.
Maybe I missed something, but you said maybe it's for the enlightened beings that joy is regardless of material things. But being earthling...
Happiness is beyond objects. Happiness, not joy.
Happiness, but not having reached that way far from reaching those moments, why do I feel when I look at a vegetable biryani, I'm like so happy? I mean, it's being just human. I'm just quoting myself as an example. I'm pretty sure many in the group have the similar feeling. Biryani, vegetable biryani is just a thing. Why is it then? Are we so far from reaching, let's call it moksha or the bliss?
Okay, right.
Or is it a journey? Looks like what I understand is that the joy or the happiness is a characteristic feature of life itself. And it's trying to emerge out the moment it gets a chance, should I say, or an opportunity, or does it even need an opportunity? I don't know. But in this case, the biryani was an opportunity, at least.
Okay. So, Venkat, your question is absolutely appropriate. So when I have something, an object that gives me that joy, that pleasure, am I far from that moment of liberation, or am I traversing on that path? And your answer is already in your question, that the bodily functions, the predispositions given unto this body would continue to function even if I were realized right here and now today. If Venkat was totally a realized soul, Venkat would still have the joy of seeing the dish called biryani in front of him and would enjoy the savoriness of it without being attached to it. If he were realized, he would still enjoy it, that I like this dish, the ice cream or the chocolate or whatever that pleasure is. I would still enjoy it, and yet I would be completely detached from it. In what sense? In the sense that the taste of the biryani, it is good today, but next time if it is not good, I'm not going to lament about it, not going to complain about it. Today, if somebody had forgotten to put salt in it, I would have still taken it as if it was the same taste that I remembered. And next time, I would not be looking for biryani when I'm going to eat. I would be beyond the taste of biryani, the feeling of biryani, to take that as an example. Similarly, with my money, with my sensualities, my sexuality, my parentage, my being a child, or by being a father or a mother or a wife or a husband or a partner or a boss or an employee, employer, everywhere my definitions would continue to diminish. That would be the state of my divinity if I am detached from my money, from my investment, from my jealousies, from my anger, from my irritabilities, my likes and dislikes, and there are zillions of them. When I begin to withdraw from them, I'm getting closer to divinity. So that's the way to look at it. It's a very good example. Do I still think that I'm not liberated? No, don't limit yourself. Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi functioned amongst us, and many other realized souls have functioned within the societal boundaries of things given unto them. Not that they were not self-realized, they were. It is not the state of self-realization which makes me not engage in the world. It is my continuing, as Vivekananda would say, that a greater practitioner of liberation is the one who is not in the Himalayas, sitting in the mountains in a cave. He is the one who is running a household here, looking after the responsibilities that he is supposed to fulfill and yet be detached from it. So if I lose all my money tomorrow, would I go into depression? Then I definitely am not walking towards divinity. I'm more engrossed in the world. But if I can withstand that with very limited fluctuation of my displeasure, that I lost my entire portfolio of $1 million or $10 million or $100 million, if I can come out of it quickly and not be depressed, then I'm more divine, walking towards the path of liberation. That's the way we mortals need to look at it. That's the world. That's the world that will beseech you. He asked the question. Here's a practical thing. Again, when he comes back, we can repeat this for him so that he does. We're not talking when he's not here. We are talking about the question he raised. He was so intrigued in it. And yet somebody in the family said something, and he says, I'm in a class. And that person said, then close the door. And then he got, that's the world around me, which will continue. Which will continue. Let's say I was meditating. Somebody had asked once whether I should get up when I'm doing my puja, when I'm doing my prayers, I'm doing my meditative practice, or I'm doing my ritualistic practice. And there's a doorbell that, alerts me that somebody's at the door. And there's no one else to open the door except me in the house. Shall I abandon the prayer that I'm doing and open the door or not? The simple answer is yes. That's the God who has come to the door. The one that you are worshiping has just arrived at the door. Go open the door. That's the divinity. That doesn't matter. When I have to tell people that my practice is so important that I can't talk to you, then your practice is little less important than it should have been. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point? Venkat is not here.
Wonderful example, Bandhu. Okay. Wonderful example. I love it. I was hearing everything. I didn't miss. Okay, I had to get to something. My wife.
So I took your situation as an example that.
Beautiful. I love it.
Close the door. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah, it is a practical thing. So I took it. Okay. I took the liberty. I did not know if you were in the room or not, but I took the liberty.
Look, that example is so profound. And my wife keeps saying, when the Atithi comes, that's your opportunity. Serve them selflessly. Food, hot water, bedsheet. I mean, that's so profound. They did it in the past, right? And you said, answer the door. Answer the door.
Even now, those who want to do it, do it. That's called in Sanskrit Atithi Devo Bhava.
Yes, yes,
Atithi,
yes.
the guest who has come is the Lord who has come to serve him. And that should not apply only to the people who come into my house. It should also apply to the people I meet on the street. When a beggar comes to you, a panhandler comes to you in Manhattan, your first reaction is, I don't want to talk to this guy in ragged clothes, or he may have infection. No, that'll be wrong. Ask him and serve him if you can. Cater to him. I used to struggle with this when I was a teenager, and I used to live in Delhi. And there were beggars everywhere. When we went to the school bus stop, there was a beggar. No matter where you went, there was a beggar in Delhi, especially in old Delhi. And I used to struggle with this. And we used to read the talks in the evening and I would translate the talk, Bhagwan's talks. My father would be sitting and I would translate because my mother didn't know English. So I would translate the talk for her. And luckily for me, that day when we started the talk was about this, somebody asking Bhagwan, how should I handle if a beggar comes to me? And I'm always struggling. And Bhagwan said, you are nobody to decide whether the beggar is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. You do what you have come here to do. Summaira. Exactly what he told the devotee when the robbers came. I'm sure all of you have heard the story from me before, but even at this, even if it's a repetition, it's a good repetition. When the robbers came and other devotees woke up because they were knocking on the door and the window, and Bhagwan said, open the doors for them. Immediately he said, he opened the doors. And they opened the doors, they came in, they didn't find anything, so they ordered everybody to get out of the room because they thought, if the Swami is the only one sleeping on a settee, a couch, and there's a chaddar, a dari on the mat, on the couch, money must be underneath that. So they ordered everybody to get out. And as they were getting out, one of the robbers hit Ramana Maharshi on his left thigh with a club. When he hit him, one of the other devotees began to charge at the robber. And what did Bhagwan tell him? Stop. You do what you have come here to do. He's doing exactly what he has come here to do. And that's what we are supposed to be doing. And yet there are limitations to things, and understandably one may or may not be able to, but every moment is a sublime moment given unto me in this life by the divine force to check me out constantly. Am I walking with him or not? If I'm walking with myself and my world, how am I going to embrace the liberation? How am I going to have that happiness that we talked about? That's why last week, I knew we were going to come to this verse. That's why we did the exercise for the first time. We said, let's define happiness, didn't we? And that's the difference between an object, joy because of something, and happiness which is beyond everything. Yes, Sandra.
You talked about if you see a beggar, take action, and whatever comes, serve the beggar in some way. The devotee of Ramana, when he watched Ramana being hurt, wouldn't action be protecting Ramana? Wouldn't that be his expression of taking action to protect his master?
Correct.
Why wouldn't that be? But Bhagwan said, no, don't protect me.
Right.
But I'm saying, wouldn't that be the action the devotee should take if he felt that he needed to protect Ramana? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think it was a good reflex that the devotee had, that he wanted to protect Ramana Maharshi from being physically beaten by a robber who already had hit him with the club. That was an absolutely normal, respectful, divine action by the devotee to begin to charge at the robber. There is no denying that fact. And yet it is the guru of the stature of Ramana Maharshi who even at that moment reminded him that you are an earnest devotee, you remain just a devotee. Don't worry about what's going on. Don't see me as a physical limitation. Don't see me as another body and Robert as the third body. Just let it happen. Don't worry about it. You stay calm and quiet. Do whatever he's asking us to do. That's why they all got out. So succumbing to the will of others is a divine quality.
So if the beggar were a sadhu and he was just had nothing and didn't want to have anything, the sadhu could say, I'm not looking for money. I'm not looking to be fed. I just leave me as I am. Do you know what I'm saying?
I understand, but I want a clarification that if a sadhu is saying I'm a beggar or a beggar is saying I'm a sadhu.
If we see a beggar and we want to help the beggar,
yeah.
Could that person, if he is enlightened, say, I'm not looking for help, I'm just here?
Correct.
You don't like Bhagwan said,
Correct.
I'm just here.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine. So anyway, thank you, Venkat, for opening up. And thank you all. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, for your presence, and for your vibrations.
Thank you, Bandhu.
Anyatha sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mama tasmat karunya bhave rakshamam ramneshwara rakshamam ramneshwara. Thank you all. I'll see you next week.
Arunachala.
Arunachala. Arunachala.
Arunachala.